You said something awkward last week. Not cruel, not terrible, just wrong enough for the room to notice. A joke that landed flat, a comment that came out strange, a moment where the air changed before anyone said anything. Most of those people will never see you again. You are still thinking about it. Most people assume this is a confidence problem. You care too much what people think. You need to stop seeking external validation. You need to be more secure in yourself. And for most of your life, you have probably believed that the solution was somewhere inside you, some version of yourself that simply wouldn't care. That version of you does not exist. Not because you are broken, because the caring was never about confidence. In 1992, evolutionary anthropologist Robin Dunbar at Oxford University published research that reframed how we understand the human brain. He had spent years studying the relationship between brain size and social group size across primate species. The larger the neocortex relative to total brain size, the larger the stable social group the animal could maintain. For humans, that number was roughly 150. Not a coincidence, not a cultural preference, a cognitive limit, the maximum number of individuals the human brain can track simultaneously. Their faces, their histories, their relationships to each other, their current opinion of you. Your brain evolved to care what 150 people think. The problem is, it never learned to stop at strangers. Here is what a stranger actually was for most of human history. You lived inside a group of 50 to 150 people. You knew every face. You knew every history. You knew who was generous and who was not, who kept their word and who didn't, who was worth helping and who had stopped pulling their weight. That information was your social map, and you updated it constantly. Then, occasionally, someone new appeared. A traveler from a neighboring group, a trader passing through, someone whose own group had fractured and who was looking for a new one. That person was unfamiliar, but they were not irrelevant. They were a potential future member of your community, someone who might stay, who might contribute, who might become a permanent part of your social world. Their first impression of you was not disposable. In a group of 150 people, social information travels fast. If the newcomer decided you were unreliable, aggressive, or weak, that assessment would move through the network within days. It would reach the people whose opinion of you determined whether you received help when you were injured, whether you were included in the next hunt, whether you were considered a desirable mate. A single stranger's judgment could ripple through your entire survival system. So when one stranger looks disappointed in you, your brain does not file it as one random face. It files it as reputation damage. It opens an audit. It starts running through what went wrong and whether it can be repaired. Not because you are insecure, because that is what the system was built to do. In 1956, sociologist Irving Goffman published a study on what he called impression management, the way human beings perform versions of themselves in social situations and monitor how those performances land. He spent years observing social embarrassment in ordinary settings, and one case stayed with him. A waiter at a restaurant dropped a full tray during service. The crash was loud. Every diner in the room looked up. The waiter recovered quickly, collected himself, apologized, continued working. By any professional standard, he handled it well. Hours later, Goffman found him in the back of house, still shaken, not from the physical incident, from his certainty that every person in that dining room had formed a permanent judgment of him, that they would remember, that it would follow him. None of those diners would ever see him again. The restaurant was in a city. The diners were strangers passing through a single evening of their lives. Their assessment of him could not reach anyone who mattered. There was no network for it to travel through. His brain did not know any of that. Modern life says they forgot. Your nervous system says, check again. And so you do. At 2 a.m., 3 days later, in the middle of something completely unrelated. The system that was built to protect your reputation inside a permanent community is still running the search on people who have already left the building, the street, the city, the moment. But here is where it gets stranger. In the 1990s, psychologist Thomas Gilovich at Cornell University ran a series of experiments testing what he called the spotlight effect, the degree to which people believe others notice and remember their behavior. In one study, participants were asked to wear an embarrassing t-shirt into a room of other people, then estimate what percentage of the room had noticed it. Participants consistently estimated that roughly 50% of people had noticed. The actual number was around 25%. The spotlight you feel on you at all times, the sense that every stumble, every awkward comment, every wrong note is being tracked and filed by everyone around you, is exactly twice as strong as reality warrants. And that gap is not a malfunction. It is a margin of safety. In a tribe of 150 people, the cost of underestimating how much others noticed you was higher than the cost of overestimating it. The brain that assumed it was always being watched made fewer social errors. That brain stayed inside the network. That brain survived. You are that brain, running in a city of millions, where most of the people who saw your stumble have already forgotten your face. But your nervous system is still convinced they are your neighbors, still certain they will be at the fire tonight, still sure that what they saw is going to follow you. Think about the last time it happened. The moment at the supermarket checkout when you fumbled with your card and the people behind you were waiting. The comment in the meeting that came out wrong. The stumble on the pavement in front of a cafe. The joke that landed in silence. The face you made when you thought no one was looking. And someone was. None of those people are thinking about you right now. You know that. Some part of you knows that perfectly well. But the system running underneath that knowledge doesn't. It is still calculating, still assessing the damage, still running the reputation audit on a person who has already left the building and will never return to it. That is not insecurity. That is not vanity. That is a social tracking system so precise it operates below the threshold of conscious override. You cannot think your way out of it because it was never a thought. It was infrastructure, built before language, running deeper than reason. The stranger whose opinion you cannot stop thinking about is long gone. Your brain filed them as a neighbor. Here is what makes this harder to dismiss than it first appears. The system was not just built to protect you from bad impressions. It was built to build good ones. The same circuitry that tracks shame and embarrassment also drives generosity, cooperation, and the impulse to help strangers in public. Humans are the most cooperative large animal on the planet. We help people we have never met and will never meet again, at cost to ourselves, constantly. That impulse comes from the same place. In a world where every stranger was a potential future tribesperson, being seen as generous, reliable, and trustworthy was as important as any physical strength. The reputation you built with strangers was the infrastructure of your future. Kindness to an unfamiliar face was not altruism. It was investment. The system that makes you agonize over an awkward comment is the same system that makes you hold the door open for someone you will never see again. The same system that makes you tip fairly even in a restaurant you will never return to. The same system that makes humans, alone among all animals, build institutions, honor contracts, and extend trust to total strangers at scale. Caring what strangers think is not a flaw in the code. It is the code, the same code that built everything. The next time you catch yourself replaying a moment in front of someone you will never see again, the stumble, the silence after the joke, the comment that came out wrong, you are not being irrational. You are running the most sophisticated social tracking system evolution ever produced. It kept your ancestors inside the group, inside the network, inside the web of reputation that kept them fed and protected and alive. It just never learned the difference between a neighbor and a stranger. Because where you came from, there wasn't one.